Oh, students are here.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
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 Welcome.
Hello.
Thank you. Hello.
We're going to give everyone another three or 4 minutes or so to join the Zoom, but then we'll be starting our financial aid session.
Okay. Sounds very good. I know, take it easy. I don't know, get up and stop. Straight up. Oh. Tyrone, is that from the bus? Tyrone from the bus? Tyrone from the bus? That sounds good.
Good evening, everyone. I want to take a moment to thank everyone for joining us this evening for our financial aid session. If you look at the screen, you'll see some of the topics that will be covered. Director of Admissions. Some of the housekeeping rules, we want to ask that everyone keep themselves muted. If there are any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to write the question in the chat box, and periodically throughout the presentation, we'll be answering those questions. If there's a large amount of questions that are in the chat box that we don't get to answer, we will send all those answers to those questions. We will email them to all participants after the session. So without further ado, my name is Calvin Conyers. I'm the Associate Dean of Admissions and Recruitment here at Benjamin Franklin Institute of Technology. It is my pleasure to introduce our Director of Financial Aid, Shani Wilkerson, who will be presenting tonight. Shani, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Calvin. Good evening, everyone. Welcome, prospective and admitted students, parents, family members to tonight's part 2 of our financial aid summer series. Some of you might have already joined our first session earlier in the spring, where we went over kind of the ins and outs of how to apply for financial aid. tonight, the focus will be, for most of you, hopefully you've already applied for financial aid and already received your award letter. The question now is, what do you do next? How do you plan for the year? What are your options for financing? Kind of what are the next steps? So those are the things that I'll be going over today, as you can see from the slide. I will be giving just a refresher as far as the FAFSA for any of you who are on here who have not applied for financial aid yet, or maybe you're still in the middle of that process. I do have samples of what, kind of a average award letter could look like from BFID and how to understand the information that's provided in that form, as well as understanding your funding sources. So breaking down the award letters as you would receive them, the difference between a grant, a scholarship, a loan, a payment plan, or any of the other options that are available to you to cover your balance if need be. And then, of course, the most important thing is leaving time for question and answers after the presentation. So as Calvin said, if you're thinking of a question, put it in the chat, and I definitely will make sure that we have time to open up the floor, halfway through the evening. So I definitely will get started. If I can move my cursor. Just a little bit of a refresher about me. Again, my name is Shani Wilkerson. I'm the Director of Financial Aid. Most of the official communications that you'll receive from financial aid will have my name attached, but we also do have a knowledgeable, really robust financial aid team, our enrollment services team, who answer our phones and emails, and who many of you, I'm sure at this time, have already interacted with. They are financial aid professionals who can help you, complete the FAFSA, again, understanding your award letters, filling out any additional documentation that might be needed. But I'm the one that's here on campus, on a regular basis. And, as you can see from the slide, just a little bit about me. I've been at BFID now going on almost 4 years. Proud to be a Dorchester resident for, almost 20 years. My daughter is a BPS senior or rising senior as of the fall. And, those are just some of the things that keep me really passionate about higher ed and making sure that students and their families understand the process. As, officially 2 weeks ago, my husband and I are now entering that process for our daughter. So she's in the college going process. So all of the things that I've, helped families with over the years are now front and center for our family. So I definitely do understand some of the anxiety about financial aid and what do you do about any out-of-pocket costs and how do you make a decision that's going to be good for the student and the family. Trust me, those are conversations that we're having in our household right now. So no question is too much or too little. The goal of tonight and from here on out while you're enrolled at BFIT is to make sure that as your questions and concerns come up that that the team is here to help you through every step of the process and to make sure that you're fully understanding everything about financial aid. So if you want to take a picture of the slides, I know the presentation is going to be recorded, but there is some helpful information as far as links and information about FAFSA and such. So I did just want to give a reminder about the financial aid application. Again, it is free. You don't have to pay for it. You do have to register for yourself as well as your parent. If your parents are part of your household and helping you through the financial aid process, both you and one parent need to create your login information. And once you enter the FAFSA application online, you want to make sure that you list our BFIT code, which is 002151. I can't stress that enough because we have many students that complete the FAFSA and leave BFIT off of it. If we're not listed by the applicant, there's no way that I can call the Department of Ed to request that information to be sent for the school because there's so much private information that's contained. Only the student can allow us to have those permissions. So make sure that you list us on there. The state deadline for FAFSA was May 1st. It doesn't mean that you can't complete the FAFSA right now if you haven't applied yet. It will just mean though that the deadline has come for students to be considered for the Massachusetts state grant. So again, even if you're not eligible for a Mass grant, please make sure that you apply for financial aid because there's certainly other federal funds as well as institutional money that is available to you. Sometimes from year to year, the state will give some allowances and go back and see how many students have applied for FAFSA. And if they applied, a couple days, maybe even a couple weeks past that May 1st deadline, they might still extend mass grant eligibility. But for right now, the state is communicating to students that they're not eligible. But I don't want that to discourage any of you. If you haven't started the aid process, get your FAFSA in as soon as possible. And you will be using your or your parents' 2019 income and tax information. So again, just hitting home on the important stuff. Make sure that you have your FSA ID and password. Make sure that you list BFIT as one of the schools to receive that information, and have your 2019 income and tax information handy, because those are the details that the application will be asking for. Once you submit the application, you'll get a confirmation from the Department of Ed saying that your application is complete. Bottom of the student aid report, well, there's a lot of paragraphs on there. They'll tell you about your eligibility for things like the federal Pell Grant for loans, things like that. At the bottom, there will be something called a DRN number, or a data retrieval number. You want to make sure that you keep that confirmation email, stored someplace handy, because again, everything is electronic. There are times where a student will submit a FAFSA, but for some reason, BFIT never receives it. The only way that I can do some further research, or that our team can do research, is if you have that DRN number attached. So again, as soon as you complete your FAFSA and you submit, make sure you keep that confirmation information handy. Okay, so once you've done your FAFSA, you've applied for financial aid, you get your confirmation, there still might be some additional paperwork that you need to submit, not necessarily to FAFSA, but to our school. Some of you, again, depending on how far along you are in the process, if you've already received your award letter, or if you've just recently applied, you might have been selected for a process called verification. So what verification is, it's where the Department of Ed randomly selects essentially 1 out of 3 FAFSAs per school, and tells the school or the financial aid department that we must go out and verify the information that the student or their family has submitted on their FAFSA. So for that, we would be asking for, copies or electronic versions of tax returns for 2019. There might be additional verification worksheets that you'll need to submit. Again, very similar information to the FAFSA, but for this verification process, you'll need to list things like who's in your household, their ages, what's their relationship to you, what's the makeup of your household. You might, depending again on your FAFSA application and what the Department of Ed has reviewed, you might be required to provide proof of citizenship or non-citizenship status. So things like a birth certificate, a certificate of naturalization, a copy of a US passport, or a copy of your permanent resident card. So even if you're not a US citizen, but you are a permanent resident and you have that status, you're still eligible for financial aid. So again, oftentimes the Department of Ed will require our school to collect that paperwork from you as well. If you're a male 18 years old or older, you'll also be required to register for Selective Service. So again, our enrollment services team, depending on kind of what your situation is, if you see that there's additional forms or information that you need to provide, you can definitely contact our team and they will walk you through those steps, either online that you can do at home, or send you the appropriate worksheet depending on your situation. Another reject that comes up from FAFSA at times, and this would particularly pertain to students who had been enrolled in college before. Maybe you had done a year or two, or maybe you had actually graduated and received a degree, and now you're coming to BFIT to pursue a certificate or another degree. Sometimes students in between that time had been required to repay on previous loans, and for some reason they had fallen into default. If that's a reject that your FAFSA is showing that you have a loan default status that needs to be resolved, again, contact our department and we can let you know more details about exactly what you need to provide. But essentially it would be proof that if the default was from, let's say 2019, 2020, but in the last several weeks or months, you cleared that loan default, we would just need, again, to see confirmation of that. All of our requests that are made, are necessary so that we are awarding you the most financial aid based on your eligibility. So we want to make sure that if you're eligible for Pell Grant, which is money you don't have to repay, that we're giving you the most. We want to make sure that if you're eligible for scholarships and any other kinds of grants, even some kinds of loans, that you are receiving financial aid that matches your true level of financial need. So again, it really depends on how you're selected by the Department of Ed. They notify us of who needs to be selected. We very rarely go out and make additional requests unless it's absolutely necessary. But I say all that to say that anything else that is needed, please turn those requests back to our office as soon as possible, because we can't move forward with a financial aid award unless, all necessary items have been received. Here's just a copy of a part, a financial aid award. Most awards are, about a page and a half. This is a section where, there always are a lot of questions based on the numbers that are provided. There's a lot of numbers up in the thousands. Sometimes a student will get very nervous and say, well, wait a minute, I can't pay $20,000, or, what are all these budget items? I don't understand what you're charging me. So I really just want to spend a little bit of time on this slide to kind of give you a snapshot of, when you get your award, don't be nervous, because all of these items, they do make sense in the end. So, again, after your name and your address and the BFIT logo is at the top, there'll be this, small message about thanking you for applying for financial aid and giving you an estimated breakdown of what your costs would be. So we do have two different kinds of budget categories. We have the actual costs or items that you could be charged from the college, again, based on your degree or certificate enrollment, based on your major, your direct costs may vary. And then we also have indirect costs. So things that BFIT does not charge, but we estimate you're still, or you and your family are going to have to incur out of pocket. So I'll start with the billed items first, since those are the things that, most people are concerned about in the very beginning. So of course we have things like tuition, $16,950. That's, again, average full-time 2 semesters enrollment per year. Again, based on your program, if you're in a certificate or an associate's program or a bachelor's program, you could see a different amount. It's also based on full-time enrollment. So everybody is awarded when they get their financial aid package under the assumption that you're going to be full-time. If you're taking anything less than 12 credits, then this tuition amount, when you actually see your bill that will come out later in the summer, that amount could be different based on your enrollment plans. The technology fee, that's again assessed to all students, goes into use of Wi-Fi on campus, any of the computer labs, anything that relates to technology that's going to be necessary for you to complete your studies. That fee is assessed to every student each year, and that's based on 2 semesters. Automotive tools for this student, for this sample award letter, happens to be an automotive student. For that specific major, there are additional costs based on the tools that are required to complete your studies. So for this student, they have tuition for the year, $16,950, technology fee for the year, as well as their tool charge, bringing them to a total of $20,225. That is what this student who received this award letter would get in terms of a bill for the entire school year. That amount does not include financial aid. So that's just the outright estimated what we feel that student is going to be charged from the business. You might wonder, well, if that's going to be the bill, why would you have other charges to the right, like books and transportation and things like that? As an institution, we always want to give what we feel is going to be the full cost of education for the year. So aside from just your bill, the cost of being a student, how much are you going to spend, on average estimated for books and supplies for the year? Again, for this student, we feel for full-time enrollment, 2 semesters, they might spend up to $1,600. Transportation, same thing. Maybe you're buying a monthly T-Pass, you know, for that for almost a year, that's maybe $1,200, or you're driving your car and having to pay for parking. Those kind of charges would fall under transportation. Same thing with a living allowance. Although BFIT does not offer on-campus room and board, we still do want to acknowledge the fact that students and their families have living expenses. You know, you're still, if you're on your own, you're going to be paying rent, you have utilities, you have other, you know, again, living allowance kind of items. Or if you're living with your family, you might be contributing to those household expenses. So again, none of these costs here on the right are factual. You won't see them on the bill. We don't bill for tuition. We don't bill for books and supplies unless they're required for the class. And we don't bill for a living allowance. But when students and families are looking at their true cost of education, we want them to see the billable items, which, you know, there's no wiggle room on that, versus what you might still incur out of pocket. So overall, you're looking at about $27,000 for the year on average. But again, none of this includes financial aid. And the only bill you'll get from the school for this student in this major is a bill for about $20,000 for the year. Before I move on to the next slide that goes into the aid, does anyone have any questions so far?
Yes, we have a few questions in the chat.
Yep.
First question is, well, start off with selective service. Selective service requirement.
What about it and why do we require it?
Is it a requirement?
It is for any male 18 years old or older who's a US citizen. So yes, so when you submit your FAFSA on that student aid report where they kind of report out everything that you submitted and what your status is, they will let you know on that student aid report what's required. They will also transfer that information over to BFIT. So, you know, on your missing information letter or any communication you get from the school, if you haven't already seen it from FAFSA, you'll definitely see it from our office if you're required to register for selective service. It is also a question on the FAFSA under the student information section where it asks for things like your state of residence, your citizenship status. It asks you, are you registered for selective service? Or if you're not, FAFSA can actually register on your behalf. So there is a box that you can actually check where FAFSA will register for you. If you want to make it easy on yourself, you can just check that box and you don't have to worry about doing it on your own. But if you didn't check that box and FAFSA says you need to register, again, our enrollment services team can give you the link online where you can register for selective service. It's free of charge, takes probably 5 minutes. They're just going to ask for your name, social security number, date of birth. You'll submit, and then you'll actually be able to or save your selective service registration card.
There's another question that I believe you're going to cover a little bit later, Arnold, asked whether or not with this package, is there a way to not take out the loans as a part of the financial options? I believe you're going to cover that a little bit later.
Yep, so I definitely will talk about loans and just about other components of the financial aid award, but just as a blanket response, you're not obligated to take any part of your financial aid that is offered. So if that's your desire to reduce or cancel your loans, you just need to let us know in writing. If there are other scholarships or grants or other financing options that are available to you outside of BFIT that you want to use instead of financial aid, you're more than welcome to do that as well. And typically we can make those changes now as well as throughout the school year, so long as you let us know in writing and, you know, in advance of your desire to make that change. So yes, you can cancel or reduce any part of your aid at any time.
I received 2 financial aid letters. If you receive 2 financial aid letters, they should use the most recent one.
Yes, so pay attention to the date of the award. The one that is the most recent is the one that is going to be transferred over to your student bill. For sometimes, you know, again, we award based on every student under the assumption you're going to be full-time or in a certain major. if for any chance we get different information. So maybe you spoke with your advisor, you spoke with someone in admissions and said, you know what, I don't want to go full-time, I want to go half-time, or I want to change my major and now there's different costs associated, we'll go ahead and send you a revised award letter. So it's not uncommon to get more than one. You just want to pay attention to the most recent award that you receive.
And how long does it take for an award letter, for a student to receive their award letter? So if a student fills out their FAFSA today, how long should they expect to hear back from financial aid with their award letter?
Yep. So from the time that you submit and you get that confirmation from the Department of Ed that your FAFSA is complete and it's been received, I would give it about 48 hours, or 2 business days for BFIT to receive that same information. So if a student applied today or applies tonight, we probably would get it by Friday. If not, most likely first thing Monday morning. From the time that we receive that FAFSA, we're awarding on a weekly basis. So again, to answer your question, if you're applying tonight and everything goes through, there's no additional information that's needed, you're not selected for verification or anything else, you should have a financial aid award emailed to you, if not by the end of the next week, probably a week from this time. So I'd say no longer than 2 weeks. If that, again, we're going out with awards, on a weekly basis. At this point, they're typically emailed out on Fridays. So if you're concerned, or that you've applied and it's been 3 weeks or 4 weeks and you haven't heard from our team, definitely reach out and see, is there something else that's missing? Did we in fact receive your FAFSA? Did the Department of Ed give us all the information that you submitted, or are there other things that are required?
Is it typical not to be offered any award from Pell or Mass Cash Grant?
Unfortunately, BFIT does not participate in the Mass Cash grant program. That is something that is very common at the community colleges, but unfortunately, we don't have that authorization from the state. As far as your eligibility for other things like the Massachusetts State Grant or Pell, it all depends on that expected family contribution, or EFC, from FAFSA. So it's hard to tell. Each admitted class is different. Each average EFC for every year can vary, from one year to the next. So it's really hard to tell. There's no kind of formula that I can use without actually looking at your FAFSA to see whether you're eligible for those funds. It's unfortunately kind of a wait and see. You'd have to submit all of your data, make sure that if your parents are applying with you, that they've done their section in full, and then, wait for that student aid report to see what your eligibility is for those programs. But yes, to answer your question, there are some students that don't get Pell, they don't get Mass Grant because they have displayed a high level of ability to pay for college. Should I move on, Calvin? Or there's more?
Because I think the rest of these questions you're going to be about to cover. Okay.
So here's, probably the most important piece of the financial aid award. Again, this is one student who, just kind of judging from the aid that's offered, they met the May 1st deadline. So that's why you see the Massachusetts State Grant. They have a high level of need. So you do see things like the Pell Grant. You see something that we call SEOG, or Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant, Mass Grant. You definitely see the Franklin Assistance funds that have been added, as well as their federal loans. So this is what the breakdown of your funds that have been offered would look like on your award. And again, this is just, a random student that I picked. You'll see it broken down by semester. So FA 21 is fall 21, as well as spring 22. That matches this specific student's enrollment pattern. If you're in a program or a major, a degree program or certificate that is different, then you'll see different semesters that are outlined. So, for the most part, students entering in fall are going to be here for 2 semesters. You'll see their total Pell Grant for the year of $6,345, split evenly between the 2 semesters. The student is also eligible for $600 in SEOG, split evenly between the 2. Massachusetts State Grant for $1,600, split between fall and spring. And the same thing for the rest of their funds. So again, based on their FAFSA, based on their cost of attendance, based on their major and their program, they're eligible for $4,000 $505 in the Franklin Assistance Grant. One thing that I do want folks to look at, if you're kind of looking at all these numbers like, what does all this mean? Everything that's above, so this fund, this fund, this fund, this fund total for the year are all funds that this student would not need to repay. So this is all grant assistance. They're getting, 45, 11, they're getting almost, $13,000 in scholarships and grants that they don't have to repay. In addition to all of that, they're still eligible for their federal loans. So as a first-year student, they're eligible for $3,500 in a subsidized loan, meaning this loan does not accrue interest while they're in school. And they're also eligible for $2,000 in an unsubsidized loan in addition to the subsidized. So their total financial aid award is $18,550. If we look back at that cost off of $20,000, that $20,225 doesn't look as scary because they've got, almost 90% of it covered with the financial aid that they've been awarded. So for this student, they're in a pretty good situation. They still do have some out-of-pocket costs that they'll need to cover. But again, once I start kind of outlining like payment plans or other financing options, this number right here is it's not as scary. There's definitely aid that we're going to make sure that you have based on your eligibility. And it is going to be a combination of funds. Again, it could be federal, could be state, could be scholarships from the school, or it could be loans. So again, you really want to pay attention to your total in financial aid and then match that against the costs that are outlined above in your award letter. So again, just to mention about scholarships and why everyone is, wanting to make sure that they get the most scholarship money, because scholarships and grants don't need to be paid. So there's no payment plan that you'll have for these funds once you graduate. The Pell Grant, as I mentioned, that's based on the EFC from FAFSA. The student that I gave the example of was eligible for the max, which is $6,345, money that doesn't need to be repaid. That student also, again, made the FAFSA deadline for the state of Massachusetts for Mass Grant. Again, Mass Grant is awarded by the Massachusetts Office of Student Financial Aid Assistance. So they send their own kind of award notice letters to students, which, kind of similarly look to a letter that you might get from BFIT. If you get a letter saying that you are or are not eligible for Mass Grant and you have further questions, you can certainly contact their office or, kind of read it to us over the phone or bring it into the office when we're open. And I can help you to go over exactly, what is their reason for awarding or denying you that fund. But again, those funds, Mass Grant, they're awarded from the state, and their maximum is $1,800 for the year. And then also there's Franklin Assistance Grant, which is just one of several scholarships that are awarded by our institution. It just happens to be the most popular. And again, that money does not need to be repaid. The Franklin Assistance Grant can range anywhere from, roughly $1,100 to maybe $5,500 for the year. So again, none of these funds are funds that need to be repaid. So again, it goes to the point of making sure that you meet deadlines. Again, the student got $1,800 just because they filed on time. They showed that they had a high level of need, plus the school recognizes their level of need in academic performance. So again, this is, $13,000 or maybe even a little bit more financial aid that this student would not need to be repaid, which will be great for them in the long run. Some people have already started asking questions about the tuition-free community college grant or scholarship, or TFCC as we call it. That's something that was established in BFIT by the city of Boston in 2019. So it's, relatively still a new program, but there are different criteria that a student must meet for them to be considered. Most importantly, they have to be city of Boston resident. They have to have a cumulative GPA from high school of 2.0 or better. Their FAFSA has to show that they have the highest level of need possible, which is a 0 EFC. You had to have finished high school or completed high school requirements after September 8th, 2020. So essentially 1 year or within 1 year of you beginning your program if you're starting in the fall. The scholarship covers your cost of tuition minus your Pell Grant and or your state grant if you're eligible. So again, that $16,950 for most students BFIT would cover the difference between that and any federal or state grants that you receive. So it's not the cost of tuition, but it's tuition minus any grants that you're eligible for. As of right now, no students have been awarded TFCC, even though some of them, some of you here on this Zoom might know that you already meet all of those criteria. We're going to begin that review, very soon this month, and then go out with a revised award letter to those students who actually do qualify. And again, that notice will come from BFIT. It won't come from the city of Boston. It'll come from us, and it'll show that, based on a secondary review, for those who are eligible, they're now eligible for TFCC. The great thing about TFCC is that students don't need to take loans, because again, we cover their tuition minus any federal or state grants that they're eligible for. So to the student's question earlier about, do you need to take loans? If you're a TFCC recipient, you won't have them at all, but you also still can cancel them if, for any reason you don't want to borrow any federal funds. But again, I just wanted to put that information out there about TFCC, because you definitely will, for the students who are awarded, you will hear more about that in the upcoming weeks. And then the last, kind of most popular way to finance is through federal loans. And again, these are things that do need to be repaid. So depending on your year in school, if you're a first-year student and you're a dependent living at home with your family still, the maximum you'd get is $5,500 for the first year. If you're an independent student, meaning you're over the age of 24, or you're married or have children of your own, that number would jump up to $9,500. There's a 6-month grace period once you finish BFIT. So either when you graduate or make other enrollment plans where you separate from the college, that 6-month grace period allows you to not have to make any payments at all. The neat thing about the grace period is that the federal government acknowledges, again, you're going to school for a year or 2 or maybe 4, you're studying hard, your goal is to be able to get a really great paying job. It possibly could take 6 months for you to get hired, get situated. Maybe you're relocating, starting a family, who knows? They want to be able to give you that grace period to, not have to make payments. Once your repayment begins, it's typically over a 10-year, or 120-month repayment period. You can pay it off sooner than that. If you need to take longer than 10 years, based on anything that happens in your financial situation, you can always, kind of reallocate your repayment with your servicer of your loan. But again, this is all after you graduate. There's no requirement on any student to make any federal loan payments while they're in school. And once you do begin repayment, you're going to be repaying the Department of Education, so not BFIT. Unfortunately, BFIT does not do any institutional loan programs. Again, where maybe some other schools have their own, college loan. We only award the federal loans, the subsidized and the unsubsidized loan. Any questions before I get into questions about how to finance if your financial aid does not cover, everything that's being charged for the year?
Can you explain what interest counseling is?
Yeah, so for those of you who have already received your award, or folks that have yet to be packaged, and if you decide to take your federal loans, either the subsidized or the unsubsidized or both, there is a requirement from the Department of Ed that you complete, probably this 10 to 15-minute online counseling about student loan borrowing. So in that presentation, again, it's something that you can do pretty quickly from your phone, your laptop, computer, anywhere where you have internet access. It's going to give you information about the loan program. It's going to go over interest rates. It's going to go over repayment. It's going to go over how not to go into loan default. And then it's going to ask you questions based on the information that was provided. So before the school can disperse any federal loans, again, that's money that needs to be repaid, a student needs to complete the entrance counseling, or else that money will not disperse. So again, it's really important to read over any communication from our office, make sure that you complete your entrance counseling before September so that your aid is ready to hit your account when the school year begins. Anybody else? Oh, okay, I'm gonna move on. Okay, so in terms of, again, if your financial aid award doesn't cover your full bill, I've kind of outlined the three, again, most popular ways of financing that balance to make sure that you don't owe anything for the year. So like every other school, we do offer a monthly payment plan that's typically 8 to 10 months during the school year. So if you're enrolling for the fall and you want to do a payment plan on whatever your balance is going to be after your financial aid has been awarded, you're going to make those payments while you're in school. It's not something that you would put off until after you graduate, like repaying your federal loans. There's private loan options where you or your family might know of private educational lenders that have a great interest rate that you can cover the entire amount that's due. If that's something that you wanted to do for your balance, again, you'd be applying for those loans directly with those institutional lenders. But if you're credit approved or your parent is credit approved, then yes, you could use that to pay your balance. And then we also have ISAs or income share agreements. Again, another new financing option for BFIT that a lot of students are looking to take advantage of, where it's not a loan, but it does award you money upfront to be able to pay for your education. So again, just monthly payment plans, private loans, or income share agreements. This would be in addition to any financial aid award that was sent to you. So again, just a little bit of a detail about each option. The monthly payment plan is coordinated by the student accounts office. This year, it's going to be a little bit different. You'll be enrolling online. So there's a link where you'll choose your amount. You'll choose how much you want to finance over the 8 to 10 months, and you just sign up online. And it's equal payments over the school year. So if you're doing the 10-month plan and your bill is $600 for the year, then you'd be paying $60 per month. So again, each student's payment plan could be very different. If you have questions about your payment plan, or you need to change it for any reason, or you want to cancel it for any reason, then you would want to contact Jamila Coulter, who is our student accounts coordinator. I've given her email here as well. You might have already heard from her or contacted her about your financial aid award and wanting to know what your balance is going to be for the year. Bills for the fall are estimated to go out towards the end of this month, but before the July 4th weekend. So again, those of you who have already been admitted, already been awarded financial aid, the next step is to wait to get that bill and then be able to choose a financing option for any balance that's left over. Parents also have the option to borrow loans in their name for their students. The same way the federal government offers the subsidized and the unsubsidized loan for students, they do offer a parent loan or a plus loan that parents can take out for their students as well. Similar to the federal loans for students, the parent is going to apply directly with the Department of Education. The difference is that there actually is a credit check that the parent will have to go by. It's not an automatic approval like the student loans. So it is going to be based on the FICO score as well as your income to debt ratio. These kinds of loans, even though there is an application process and you do have to be approved, they are still easier to get approved for than just say a personal line of credit through a bank or any other kind of loan. So again, if there's a parent that has a question about if this is an option for them, or they think that maybe there's things on their credit that might get them denied, I would say definitely apply and just see what the results are, because since these are educational loans, a parent isn't taking this loan to, finance a vacation or buy a car or anything like that. The money comes directly to the school. The Department of Ed is a little more lenient in their approval criteria. And repayment on these loans would begin roughly 45 days after the loan has been dispersed in full. So let's just say there's a parent that applies and gets approved for a $10,000 loan for the year. That parent would receive, or the school would receive, $5,000 in the fall, $5,000, probably February, in the spring for the second semester. Repayment on that parent loan for the parent would begin roughly 45 days after the February disbursement. So you don't need to make payments in the beginning of the school year, but you definitely would begin repayment before the end of the school year. And I've listed the link as well if parents want to visit and get more details about the Parent Plus loan. It's studentaid.gov. Similar to the Parent Plus loan, again, families have the option to do a private loan. BFIT does not suggest one kind of loan over another. I mean, there's tons of commercials about educational financing, or you might have friends or family that have attended other colleges and have used other kinds of financing options. Essentially, any loan that a student or parent would apply for that's credit approved is one that they could use at BFIT. So there is no preferred list that we have, but we do have ones that students have used in the past and have been quite successful with. And if you'd like a listing of those private loan options, as well as the chance to apply directly online, I've provided the link as well. So it's www.elmselect.com. And again, that'll take you right to BFIT's kind of platform, and you can see what kind of loans are available to be used at BFIT. And then the last option that I mentioned is the income share agreement. Some folks are kind of unsure, like, well, what is that? What is an ISA? Is it a loan? Do I need to repay it? An ISA is a really handy option based on the major that you're in. So I've listed the eligible majors because it's not for every single student that's enrolled in BFIT. There's just a certain, at this point, that list could change. But for right now, these are the majors that our partners at MentorWorks Educational Capital have agreed to work with students and their families to cover their costs for the year. And then that student would not be required to make any payment until they've graduated and until they are working in their desired field and having a steady income. So it's not a loan. There's no interest that accrues. You're not on like a 10-year repayment plan. Excuse me. An income share agreement, it's typically a 5 to 6 year repayment. So you can definitely see the difference in the federal or the private loans. And again, it's for certain majors, and a student could borrow, up to their cost of attendance or $15,000 for the year. There is an application process. There's a whole host of supplemental benefits that a student would be offered should they contact MentorWorks and start the ISA application process. They do a lot of things in terms of financial literacy, job readiness, and essentially mentoring you through your program, so that, again, the goal is to get a great job in your desired field, that you have all the tools necessary to do that once you graduate. So again, MentorWorks Education Capital, based on these majors, they are looking for students to be able to help through their educational process with this funding that, again, is just enormous for families who have that financial need, that need some other kind of options other than making a monthly payment. And I did list the link below where you can, of course, get more information about the ISA and compare it and contrast it to a typical loan, for the same amount. Here's just some links as well. Everything provided here is also on our website, but if you wanted to just take a snapshot of this, again, questions about the entrance loan counseling, I've given the link here. In conjunction with the ELC, you also would be required to complete the Master Promissory Note, or the MPN. Both of the links are provided, as well as any other forms or resources that our office would require. Again, getting back to verification or not filing a tax return or things like that. If those things pertain to you, you can find all those forms here. And then, of course, the email and phone number to our enrollment services team. How are the questions looking? What are some of the concerns at this point in the evening?
I think you can continue. I think that we're actually answering the questions as you go along.
Okay. I'm actually, that's the information for the evening. Again, I wanted to make it short and sweet, but really recognize the fact that at this point, there might be a little bit of anxiety or just uncertainty about what to do next. So this is definitely your time to ask away.
Hey, this is Arnold.
Hi, Arnold.
From some of the questions that came up, that some people might be confused about the selective service stuff that's required. So I found my draft card from 1972.
Okay.
In my paperwork. I think people need to know that the requirement does not mean that you want to apply to be in the Army or the Air Force. It's just that every male over 18 has to have, I don't know if it's an American citizen thing or just a resident, has to apply for the Selective Service. And you get a card in the mail that just says you did it. And there's some IDs, etc. on it. Because some of the questions thought, I don't want to go into the Army.
Right.
You're not applying for the Army. You're just meeting the requirement that you met the federal guidelines for the Selective Service Act stuff. It's sometimes confusing, and maybe people didn't do it. And so if you're late, just do it. My son, who's 21, did it when he was 18. He'll never probably see anything from that again, but you just have to do it. It's something. So I just wanted to help make that clear to people.
Thank you so much. I don't know, that insight is exactly what was needed, and I don't think I could have explained it any better. Like that's exactly it. It's short, it's easy. Once you do it, you don't have to do it again. But again, for any male,
it's the draft. I think people are missing the fact that it's the draft. You have to sign up for the draft to be drafted. If the United States got into a war where they needed people, you would be drafted. But they've been doing that since, I don't know, hundreds of years. So
right.
And I would say, to add on to that, I think the draft it was originated. So there was a point in time where people weren't signing up for the military and the Army and things of that nature. So this was a requirement that was added. So then, if there was a case where we needed to go to war, we at least had a pool of applicants that we could reach out to and, have a selective service type of draft for people to join the Army. But since then, I mean, there's all types of different recruitment and, people are signing up, people are growing up wanting to be in the Army. And I think that should give us a little reassurance that, the likelihood of us having a draft, we would probably have to go to war with every country in the world.
Right.
Be in that situation. So it's more so just like a process that's been established years ago that really hasn't been changed.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it was just the terminology. People might not have been familiar with that term, selective service.
Thank you, Chris.
I have a question. You mentioned if we had received student loans in the past, if we still owe on those loans, I mean, are we, like, realistically, what are the chances we're going to get any aid?
Owing on loans isn't a problem at all, so long as you're in good standing with your payments. It's for students who owe loans from prior institutions but have gone into default. And trust me, you would know if you were in default. The Department of Ed is very swift about collecting their payments or notifying previous borrowers that they've fallen behind. So it's only if you're in default would it prevent you from being able to borrow, if you so chose, any future loans to attend BFIT. So if go ahead.
Sorry to cut you off. Let's say that you are in default.
It depends on, I guess, where you are in your loan rehabilitation process. If you are in default, and let's say that default was determined this time last year. So, maybe you lost your job due to the pandemic, you fell behind in other responsibilities, and one of them was your student loans, but you've begun the loan rehab process, which typically, if you've fallen into default, the Department of Ed will give you either a 6-month or a 12-month loan repayment plan to bring your past due payments current. Let's say you're in that payment plan now and your loan rehab will end July 1st or even August 1st or even September 1st. We would just need a copy of your loan default clearance from the lender to show that you are now current and you're no longer in default on prior loans. If your loan default rehab program is going to extend through the school year, or you haven't begun one yet, and it's going to take you until this time next year to clear that default, unfortunately, you wouldn't be eligible for things like the subsidized loan, the unsubsidized loan, or the federal Pell Grant or Mass Grant. Unfortunately, it does put a stop on any federal or state funds. It doesn't mean that you can't receive some kind of funding from the college or from other sources, but that definitely is something that you would want to take care of ASAP. I know, and again, I know it is very scary and, a hassle, and nobody really wants to talk about, financial obligations that they just weren't able to meet for, sometimes no cause of their own. But you do just want to get it under control, get the information that's needed, and then start on that path to becoming current in your loans again.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I got no problem talking about it because I think maybe some of the younger people in the group should know what they're getting themselves into, to be honest, because I went into school about 10 years ago and I never received anything. I didn't even know what I was signing my name on, to be honest. I just signed it because you go to college, that's what you do. And I mean, I don't know what happened with my case, but I never even received a bill. I never received any correspondence other than a default letter. Correspondence I ever received, and it's all I've received since.
We wouldn't let a student enroll and just keep them in the dark. Again, that's why we have sessions like these to go over, again, there could be grants and scholarships that you don't have to repay, but most students are going to have some kind of student loan. I want to be as transparent and open as possible about, again, it is a choice. If there's someone on here who says, I don't want to borrow any money, I'm going to work and pay that $5,500 out of pocket instead, that's a great option. And I always suggest, if you have resources other than loans that you can use for school, to kind of liquidate those resources first, because loans are an obligation. You do have to repay them. And if there comes a time where you're unable to, you don't want to kind of have yourself backed into a corner. So I thank you for, being very honest, Chris, about, your experience, or maybe that of other people, but we were very communicative with our students about their financial aid award letters and, exactly like you said, what they're getting themselves signed into and what the consequences might be from that.
Excellent. Thanks.
Anybody else?
This session will be posted on our website. All of the sessions that we host, we do post on our website. There was a question. I know a few people who said that they were leaving and, wanted to make sure that we had all the information that was being provided tonight. So this session will be listed on our website. And then next month, we will be having another financial aid session that will really talk about understanding your bill. So we would talk about give a brief overview about the financial aid process and, talk a little bit about the award letter, but it'd be really focused more so on, the bill and questions around that. And then we'll have the Q&A at the end of the session. This way, no matter where you are in the financial aid process or mission process, we can answer those questions to make sure that, all the anxiety or all the questions and concerns are being answered.
Right. And for that session, since it will, like Calvin said, primarily focus on the bill, if Jamila's schedule is available, I think it would be good to have her on the session so she can talk about, the bill and maybe how to waive the health insurance and things like that can get that number down, as small as possible before a student has to commit to a financing option. Anybody else?
Hello?
Hello.
I'm just making sure. So you said for the selective services, right? You have to be a citizen?
Yes. So as you're on the FAFSA answering your citizenship status, either you're a citizen or a permanent resident, the Department of Ed will let you know if in fact you have to register for selective service.
Okay. So I have to select for it, but like every time I try to do it, telling me my social security is wrong. I don't know what to do because I've been trying to call them, but due to COVID, I haven't been able to reach them. I don't know what to do after that.
You were trying to call the Social Security office or selective service?
Selective service, COVID.
Yeah, it is difficult. I will say, you know, if you find yourself in a situation where, like you said, you're trying to get this part done, but it's telling you there's some error. Unfortunately, I or the enrollment services team, we don't have the capability to fix anything that might be wrong in their database. You would just, you know, kind of keep trying to get a hold of them. Typically, the federal offices, they have really extended hours. Some of them even have hours on Saturdays. So you want to go to Selective Service website and kind of see like what are their phone hours, and maybe it needs to be a case where you're actually, you know, if you're able to, you know, if they open up the phone lines at 7, you're kind of dialing them up at 6:59. And unfortunately, you also might be on hold a while because again, it's COVID. Most places are not still, you know, up to speed and fully staffed. So I do apologize if it's been taking a long time, but you would need to speak to them directly, because it must mean if you're looking at a copy of your Social Security card and you're entering the number, you know, that should be reflected on their end. So maybe there's, you know, incorrect information that Selective Service has for that number.
Leonardo said that he said go to the Social Security office. They'll fix it. He had the same issue.
Okay, sounds good.
Where is that located at? I'm not sure. Can you tell me?
Leonardo, you want to jump in, Leonardo? If you're there. Then you're muted. I don't know if you're talking to us.
It's okay. I'll just search it up.
Okay, there you go.
Thank you very much. This
So
is
he
very
went to-
helpful.
Thanks. Yeah, he went to the one that was in Brockton, but Jenny just posted the link to show you.
No, the link I posted is for the Selective Service.
There's one located in Rosendale, someone just said.
Yeah, they should be in every city or municipality. I believe the Social Security Administration website allows you to type in like your city and they'll tell you where your local office is.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, my name is Colbert. So about the Selective Service, so there's no issue. So you guys have to call around 9 o'clock in the morning, because I called them today and it was easy.
Okay, good. I mean, you were able to get everything situated that you needed?
Yes. So the problem was about my address. So they update my address and they will send it. And I should receive the letter by Friday, they said.
Perfect. And for those of you that are needing to complete the Selective Service process, whether you're doing it online directly or whether you need to call and get confirmation sent to you in the mail, I would just, like the other participants said, keep that registration handy because you never know when in the future you might be asked for that information. So yeah, I would just, if you're getting a Selective Service registration card sent to you, I would just keep that in a safe place so that you have it for future reference.
Yeah, I got another question, right? It's just there's when I did the Selective Service thing, when I went to the bottom of the thing, the page, the website, there's a form they told me I fill out, but like how long would that take if I fill out the form instead of going to the place? Can I do the form?
You can do the form. I'll just caution you that even before COVID, anything that needs to be submitted as a hard copy, it is going to extend the time for processing. And I mean, extended by maybe a couple of weeks. So if there's any way that you could possibly register for Selective Service online, I would, try all options with that. But if, like you said, you have to do the paper form. And this also goes to the FAFSA as well. If for any reason a student or a parent needs to submit the signature page and you're mailing that in, make sure you're mailing it to the right address. Neither of them would come to the school. So please don't mail them to our address at 41 Berkeley Street. You're going to send that directly to the Social Security Administration, or if it's a FAFSA signature page, you're sending it to the FAFSA Department of Ed. But yes, that's going to take some time. It's going to take some time for them to receive it. And then again, because offices are not fully staffed, it's really hard to say how long it could take for them to process it and then go ahead and update your FAFSA.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. Anybody else?
Christopher?
Nope, sorry. Are we done?
Oh, no, your hand is up.
Oh, sorry, that's the other.
There's another Christopher, I'm sorry. Christopher D. All right. Thank everyone for attending our session. We will be sending out a follow-up email to just follow up and give you the recording of this presentation. Feel free if you have any questions or if you would like a live up-to-date on your financial aid status or your admission status, feel free to either call. Feel free to call the admissions office, or you can email the financial aid or admissions team. If you have any questions about the next steps, or even if you receive your financial aid award letter and you have questions about that, reach out to us. Even if it's if it's not enough or you're looking for extra funds, contact us so we can see what type of funds or what else we can do to make sure that finances isn't a reason for you not to attend. So we really work with everyone and make sure that you all do attend. So don't be a stranger. If anything comes up, definitely reach out to us so we can make it happen. We look forward to seeing you all in the fall.
All of you, yes. Thank you everyone for attending.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
I think it was a very great presentation.
you.
Thank you for